Hi everyone, it's Gary here from Echidna Sewing, and today we're going to be looking at one of my favourite products. That's the Echidna Hooping Station set. So here we are, the Echidna Hooping Stations. And you know what? They say necessity is the mother of invention, and hooping stations have been around for a long time, and they became a really necessary part of embroidery because, let's face it, one of the most common challenges most people have is hooping the fabric or the item that they're about to embroider. Now, while I'd love to say I designed hooping stations, I didn't. They've been around for a long time, as I said, and there's all sorts of different models and versions around. But about 15 years ago, I sort of came up with an idea to try and design a hooping station set that was a little bit easier for the home user to use, and of course it's great for commercial users as well. But we wanted one that was more versatile, and that's how these guys came to be. But if you think about it, why did we do it? What are the challenges in hooping? And there's numerous challenges, of course, and again, if you've been embroidering for a long time, you'll know them. Chasing that hoop around on the table as you're trying to hoop difficult items is difficult. Getting your stabilizer to stay in place, particularly when you're hooping things like t-shirts, really can be a challenge. And so many times people end up hooping their item only to look at it before they go to sew and say, oh, maybe I didn't do a great job with that, I might do it again. So the hooping stations are all about making that whole hooping process a much more enjoyable and easy thing to do, which just has to be a good thing for your embroidery. So let's take a look at the two sizes that we have, and we'll just explain why we have two sizes and how they work. So the smaller unit we have here is ideal for the infants and children's clothes and apparel and t-shirts and that sort of thing. It's also great for the Embroider Buddy range, you know, the stuffed toys that you can take the pods out and embroider. I'll show you that a little bit practically soon. But each of the two hooping stations are reversible. So if we take the small one and turn it around, we now have a really fine sleeve size, which is cool. So great for doing collars and intricate things like sleeves, and etc. And the versatility of being able to just simply turn it around is awesome. Now, the same thing applies to the large station. The large station has, this is the adult size. And of course, if we just turn that around, we now have youths or a child size, and again, versatility, you just simply need to turn it around. Now, this is one of the key benefits of the Echidna hooping stations, is that they are just simply reversible, and makes it super easy. The other features on the product now, and this, as I said, 15 years ago we started this development, is they are now injection molded, so they're a little bit lighter in weight than we had, you know, way back when we started. The injection molding means that the plastics are very strong, very solid. All the ribbing that you see down here strengthens up the whole unit. The braces are very strong. It screws together very easily. So when you get these guys home, simple to assemble. There's clear instructions. You really won't have any problems getting that all done. As far as the surfaces that we're working on, it's a non-slip, like a silicone rubber. Very resilient, and you can clean it down very easily. But underneath the silicone rubber on top here, there's a full metal sheet that's recessed into the plastic platen that it sits on. And that metal sheet is receptive to the strong magnets that we supply, which I'll show you in a few moments. So the non-slip surface means that your hoops won't slide around on it very easily. It also means that when it's on the table, it won't move around on a flat table or a clear a glossy table kind of thing, or a melamine bench top. So they're very stable sitting on the bench. So really simple design, and you'll see that when we turn this around, a really nice angle here too. Now what that means is when you're hooping, the ergonomics of this are far better to work with than hooping down on a flat table. You're basically working at a great angle, and of course if you've got a height adjustable desk, you can have the perfect position for all your hooping. Typically, hooping stations are very common in the industrial market where there's just repetitive hooping. So I couldn't imagine running an embroidery business without a hooping station for that repetitive hooping of shirts, etc., because it does mean that you get really precise hooping very quickly and easily every time. So a simple design. The key feature for this one that's very different to most on the market is that it is reversible. And it will work with just about any hoop on the market. So regardless of what machine brand you have, whether it's commercial or domestic, you will be able to use these guys within your embroidery room. All right, now we're going to take a look at the basic functionality using the magnets that will be holding the hoop in place. So I'm going to be using a simple 100 by 100 hoop. Now this is a domestic hoop off a single needle machine, like a home machine, and it's a slide-on type of hoop, a really common hoop, and a very common process to be hooping up a flat piece of fabric. I'm going to demonstrate on hooping up a small face washer, but most importantly, what we're going to talk about is mounting your hoop on the platen using the magnets. So in this case, because I'm not putting a shirt over the unit, I am just going to be positioning a towel. So I'm just going to put my hoop in the center position there. Now I can put it either vertically or I can sit it this way, depending on how I want the orientation of my fabric. In this case, I'm just going to leave it sitting vertically. And I have opened my hoop up right here. So because I am going to be hooping a fairly heavy face washer, so I do want to make sure that my hoop is not too tight. It's a common mistake people make is when they go to put their inner ring into the outer ring and they've got the fabric in place, they haven't loosened the hoop up far enough and they just can't push this inner ring in correctly. And I've even seen people use hammers to actually knock the ring into place. Please don't do that. That's a no-go zone. So each hooping station will come with a set of 12 magnets, and these are what we call a rare earth type magnet. So they're very strong and they do stick securely to the metal that is underneath the silicon cover on the platen. Please be careful with these. They're not a child's toy, and there are warnings on the product that you must be careful not to let these get into the hands of children, because as you would probably be aware, strong magnets can be quite dangerous to children, particularly if they ingest them. So be particularly careful there. Now, these magnets serve a few purposes. The main one, even though the hoop is actually quite solid on this non-slip table, I want to make sure that I prevent the hoop from being able to be moved in any way, shape or form. So on this particular hoop, I can utilize the little part of the frame there that actually attaches to the slide mechanism. And by putting 4 little magnets in there, I can tell you that there is no way that hoop is moving anywhere. So what that means is I'm now free to position my fabric. I know the hoop's not going to get out of shape. And another cool feature with the magnets is I can now take my stabilizer, and yes, I am going to use a backing on this towel or this hand towel that I'm going to do. But one of the key features with the magnets is I can also use them to actually hold my stabilizer in place by just simply positioning that there like that and down there. And now I know my stabilizer is not going to move anywhere. And I'm sure everyone who's ever embroidered has hooped up an article only to find out that the stabilizer moved during the hooping process and it's not hooped correctly. And then you've got to take it out and do it again. So holding that stabilizer in place is really cool. Now, this towel that I'm about to hoop is quite thick, so a lot of people struggle with towels, so I'm just going to talk about that quickly. I've got my hoop in place. I know it's not going to move anywhere. I've also got some nice square edges on this hooping station, which really does make it easy for me to get a perfect alignment. I can use those square edges to help align my towel. Now, if I wanted something directly in the middle or up at the top end of the towel, all I've got to do is now place it where I particularly want it. I can feel for my hoop. I can see that I'm not quite centered there, and that's exactly where I want that. Now, I also like to use a topping on towels, and where possible, I actually quite prefer to hoop the topping as well. So you'll notice now that because I don't have to worry about the hoop moving under the towel, I'm totally focused on what's going on top, and all I've got to do now is find my position, feel for my hoop, and because of this lovely ergonomic design, I can simply push my hoop into place, and it pushed in fairly firmly. I didn't have to use a hammer to knock it in, but it's not too tight that I'm going to damage the fabric. Now, being that this is a thick towel, I'm really happy with the way I've hooped that. And a lot of people are scared to hoop towels, but if you do it the right way and you're not fighting against all the other elements like chasing your hoop around, you'll find it's not too hard at all. Now, once you've done that, just remove the magnets that are holding the stabilizers down, and then you can just lift that hoop up. And a little tip is always make sure that you go around the hoop and push the inner ring in right as far as it will go, because you don't want that popping out. And that's the most common thing that people do, is they don't push that inner ring in far enough. I will also point out that it's quite okay to tighten the screw 1 or 2 turns after you've hooped the fabric. If you've got to tighten it too many more turns than that, it's really probably too loose. You should have had it a bit firmer or more closed before you started. But I know that that towel is hooped perfectly. My stabilizer is perfect in the back. And if you're wondering, I've got a wash away stabilizer on the back here. And the reason I've got that on a towel is because towels they're heavy, but they're not that stable. So having a wash away stabilizer there just helps during the stitching process. And that will disappear, of course, in the first wash. So that's how easy it is to actually place your hoop, hold your stabilizer in place, and hoop a simple flat object. All right, so that was all well and good with a simple little square face washer like this, but what about a bigger object like a much heavier towel, a bigger towel, and using a bigger hoop? So right now you can see I've got a 300 by 200 hoop here, and it kind of is extending the whole size of the large platen. I'm going to show you how we would stop this from moving around, and you'll notice it doesn't have that same effect that the smaller hoop had with the little grid pattern there. So we don't have anywhere we can shove the magnets. So what we do with our magnets on this one is we put it around the perimeter of the hoop. Now again, make sure that you open up the hoop sufficiently to allow and accommodate whatever article you're about to hoop. So I want to make sure that there's quite a bit of space in there, and by experience I can tell you that's probably going to be about perfect. So we're going to move that inner ring out the way. And so this is a big hoop. This is a 300 by 200. And what I want to do now is I also want to stop the hoop from moving. So I can use magnets in any position I want, really. In this case, I'm going to pop a couple down there. So that's going to stop it moving from top to bottom. And we just want to stop it moving left to right. So I could put a magnet there, and I could put a magnet out on the side there. And quite honestly, that hoop isn't going anywhere now. And you can place magnets anywhere you like. There's no particular right or wrong way for that. And different brand machines have different sort of construction of their hoops. So you just place the magnets according to the brand of machine that you have. Now let's just take my stabilizer. Again, I am going to use a stabilizer, and the bigger the hoop, the more difficult it is to get the stabilizer in the right position. So I'm just laying that wash away down there like that. And again, I'm just going to use 4 magnets to hold that stabilizer in place, a little bit of tension on it just to make sure it's secure. And as you can see, the stabilizer isn't going to move. And I've got to say, I love that, because chasing that stabilizer under the work is just one of the most difficult things you can do. So here we have a similarly weighted towel. Now I may want to stitch something, a name down the width of the towel like this, in which case I want to run the towel vertically, like I'm about to. And because the hooping station again has that nice square edge, it's very easy to get your perfect position, or your perfect squareness, because I can actually see the squareness of the hooping station. I can line things up quite visually, and I can see that that's positioned really well. You know, obviously we would have marked where we want our stitching to go. I can probably move that up a wee bit. And you can see I can slide things around now without worrying about my stabilizer moving out of position. I'm kind of happy with that. Take our inner ring. Now I haven't got a topping on this yet, but I would put a topping on it if I was about to embroider this. And now what you've got to do is feel for the hoop. Remember that the inner hoop or the outer hoop is not going to move. And look at that. How easy was that to hoop a towel? And once you do that on a hooping station, and then you think back to all the challenges you've had of the simple things like hooping, seemingly simple things, you'll really appreciate having a hooping station in your sewing kit. Again, make sure that that the screw on the bottom of the hoop is sufficiently tight. That was pretty good. I didn't have to turn that too much. And we just need to now do a little magnet count. Take our magnets away from the stabilizer. And by the way, if you lose magnets, we do sell them as a spare part, so you can get more. And all we now need to do is lift that hoop up, and that is a perfectly hooped towel. And if I just push that inner ring in a bit further, I know that's not going to pop out. I'm really happy with the result. And again, just a simple process on the Echidna Hooping Station. Okay, so we've looked at items like towels and flat work, and that the same process could apply for quilt sandwiches or just, you know, heavier items and wall hangings and that sort of thing, where you've got a lovely flat surface to work with. Easy way to get your hoop in position and line up and get nice squareness on your hooping. But what about so I think the more difficult things, like for instance, a t-shirt or a polo shirt. So let's have a close look. So this is a brand new men's extra large polo shirt. It's the sort of thing our guys would wear here. Quite a nice shirt. It's a tubular item, so we're going to talk about the benefit of hooping a tubular item like a shirt on a hooping station. Now, if we have a look at the way the hooping station is designed, this large platen has the neckline just here, and it is quite a large surface. And you would need that for an extra large shirt. So we can hoop this with any type of hoop we want. Now, if you've got a home machine, you would be using probably to do a left chest logo, you would probably be using the 100 by 100 or the equivalent in whatever brand of machine you have. And you would position that pretty much in your left chest position. Now, I don't get too carried away as to exactly where this is positioned, because I am going to have a mark on my shirt where I want my center of my design, but I usually just position it on what would be the left chest side of the shirt. Obviously, I'm looking at it, it's on my right, but of course it would be reversed once we've hooped it. But in this case, instead of using the single needle home style hoop, I'm going to show you how we would do it with an industrial or a Brother PR series hoop, which is a tubular machine. Now, the difference there with these two types of hoops is the part of the hoop that attaches to the machine is in fact on top of the fabric, not underneath it. So we need to position the outer ring down in roughly the left chest position. And I don't have any other sort of areas to put my magnets on this one. So what I do is I will place my magnets around the hoop. I have already opened my hoop up just a bit to accommodate the item I'm about to hoop. And again, that's a practice thing that you get quite used to. You know how much to open it up. I am also going to place my stabilizer at the same time. Now, here's a tip. Most of us, when we're hooping, particularly hooping t-shirts, because it's quite difficult on a flat surface to do, you've got to chase that stabilizer around so much. We tend to cut the stabilizer a bit bigger than we need, so to make sure that you do catch it in the hooping. And typically we might have a piece of stabilizer that big. I'm currently using a standard cutaway stabilizer, which is what I would use on any type of apparel, shirt, logo, that type of thing. Either the standard cutaway or even the see-through cutaway would be fine. I tend to not use the iron-on stabilizers for this because I don't need to. If I hoop correctly and I've got everything right, I just don't need an iron-on stabilizer for a typical t-shirt or polo shirt. So in order to get that positioned, I'll use my magnets, but I want to show you something. And this is just a cost-saving thing. When you've got magnets to hold your stabilizer in place, you can be much more frugal on your stabilizer because it's not going to be running or moving around under the shirt. So instead of cutting a piece that big, I'm cutting a piece this big, and I'm using my magnets right around on the corners here, right up close to the hoop, to hold my stabilizer in place, and also will stop the hoop from moving. So I've killed two birds with one stone. My hoop won't go anywhere. My stabilizer is in place. I've cut a smaller piece of stabilizer because I could get away with that. And now we're going to take our t-shirt, and I am leaving my buttons done up on the placket. And I'm going to position that here. Now remember, I would have marked where I want my design to stitch. I would have had a center point here. You can do that, of course. I kind of know where I want it. I can feel for my hoop. I am pretty much midway between my side seam and my placket there, and I'm towards the bottom end of the placket on this men's shirt. And what I can do now is just lay my topping on top and then just feel for my hoop. There it is. Push my hoop into position. I've now hooped a t-shirt. How easy is that? It doesn't get any easier than that. So now I can just simply roll that off. Take away my stabilizers, they're not needed anymore, my magnets rather, and I'll just gently pull that out. And again, I will push my inner ring into the outer ring, make sure that it's hooped correctly, and it is. Now let's have a look at underneath, and I've got a perfectly hooped piece of stabilizer under there. beautifully firm. I've got my topping on top. I know that's going to give me a much better stitch out than not using the topping. It is going to let my stitches sit a little prouder. And I will get a perfect stitch out on that particular item because it's hooped correctly. Okay, so we're going to have a quick look at using a magnetic hoop on the hooping station, because we do get asked that question, and magnetic hoops, particularly for the multi-needle machines, are becoming very popular. This is one of the Maggie hoops, and they're perfect for the hooping station because in actual fact, the magnets in the outer ring tend to hold everything in place pretty well anyway. But if you wanted to, you can still use your red magnets to position the hoop so as that it will not. Don't put it there, just make sure you put it away from any obstruction. So we'll just go around here again. And same rule applies, you can put your stabilizer down too. So I've got a bit of wash away here. I'm going to hoop an even heavier towel using this magnetic hoop. And they're actually perfect for it. So again, the magnets will hold that stabilizer in place. You just don't need to worry about it. And there we go. So take our heavier item. It's particularly good for heavy items. And if we just wanted to hoop that up, it is as simple as getting your alignment right. Remember, I've got square edges here. My hoop was perfectly centered. I know that towel is centered if that's indeed where I wanted my design to stitch. And all I got to do with the magnetic hoop is go bang, done. So really, really simple. You can use magnetic hoops with the large hooping station. And in fact, pretty much any hoop, as I said, can be used on these guys. A really common project that people like to do is babies wear or infants wear, little jumpsuits like this little guy right here. And they can be difficult. So if we have a good look at what we've got to embroider on here, and you'll notice I've swapped over to the smaller version of the hooping station. It's a tubular item. I can't easily pull it apart, but I do have to get my stabilizer up into here. I have to get my hoop into position, and then I have to hoop it and make sure that it's all done correctly. It's challenging because you do tend to chase all that around the table. Now, typically we'd be using probably a 100 by 100 hoop here, and let me just pop that hoop position there. That's about where I want to do it. I just want to put a nice little motif on the front there. So here's the challenge, getting that hoop into position, because we'd have to slide that up under here. We'd then have to put our stabilizer in. But on a hooping station, you really don't have to think about it too much. So first thing I'm going to do is position my inner ring and just see that I've got enough space there. I've got it quite free. I don't want to damage my my item, so it's fairly spaced in there. And I'm going to use I will use probably a see-through cutaway on this one. And but for now, just grab this cutaway. But if I was actually going to stitch this now, I'd put see-through cutaway on there. It'll be a bit softer and a bit suppler. In this case, I've just got a piece of cutaway just to demonstrate it. Again, use our magnets to hold the stabilizer in place. And on this hoop, because I can, I'm going to use 4 magnets down the bottom here just to prevent that hoop from moving anywhere. Because the tighter the area you're working in, like this little sort of jumpsuit, the easier it is for the hoop to get out of whack. So now we just take the little jumpsuit and we'll just position that over the hooping station like so. Again, you would have marked where the center of your design is going to go. I can feel that's perfect, that's where I want it. Just take my inner ring. Now, I still would use a topping, to be honest, and again, a lot of people will just float their topping there and stitch that, you know, a smaller piece without having it in the hoop. One of the reasons I like to put it in the hoop is it actually helps protect the fabric against hoop burn when you're actually loading the hoop in. So I can tell you now that that's probably, yeah, that's fine. It's gone in there nicely. I can tell you that's right. That's perfect, actually. Really happy with that. So now that I've got that hoop, just take the magnets away, move these guys out the way, and I can take that out. And let's have a look at what we've got underneath. And you'll see that that is now perfectly hooped. The stabilizer's caught beautifully. I've used the smallest piece I could possibly use. And because it didn't move, I didn't have to worry about missing. Now, of course, the challenge on your machine, on a domestic machine, is you've now got to hoop this up and hold the balance of the fabric out of position. Now, a lot of people will clip that and with little clips and so on and hold it out of the way. But hooping it certainly isn't an issue when you've got a hooping station. Now, another product that is incredibly popular are the Embroider buddies that we range here in Australia, and there's all sorts of different styles and brands of these guys, but this is the one we sell. And honestly, I have to tell you, when I started selling these, it was prior to us having the small hooping station available, and hooping the Embroider buddies was the driving force for designing this small one. So let me show you how it works, because if you've ever tried to hoop one of these without a hooping station, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, the Embroider buddies are ready-made. You don't have to assemble anything or put them together, but they do. You do have a removable pod in the belly, and you have a removable pod in the head. So you take those out, and now you've got an embroiderable area on the belly right there like that. But hooping them is a challenge. So let's take a look at it. And you can do it on a home machine or a commercial style machine. I'm going to hoop this one with the single needle home style hoop. And because they're quite thick, they're a plush, I'm certainly going to open up my hoop to accommodate the thickness in there. And again, it's just, you get a practice with this. That's pretty much right by what I know from the past. So I now position my hoop this way. Now I have to do it this way because this part of the hoop is going to slide onto the machine, and it has to be at the opening of the tube of the animal. So I'm now going to take my cutaway stabilizer, and yes, I'm using cutaway. And you'll notice I've been using cutaway for most things. If I'm on some sort of plush or stretchy, unstable fabric, I'll use a cutaway of some sort. And anything that I usually wear, any garment, I will usually also use a cutaway. So let's just pop that down there. So that is not going to move. I'm going to put a couple of these magnets in the hoop as well, in that little area there, just to ensure that it's not going to go anywhere. And when I'm doing a stuffed animal like this, or a toy or something, anything to do with children, of course, I always do a magnet count. Now I can tell you I've got 8 magnets in use there, and that's important because once we finish this guy, we do not want to leave any magnets. So let's have a look. Here he is. He's got no belly at the moment, and to hoop this guy, we just slide him on with his belly up and position him over where we need him. And it's you can see it's even a little bit challenging on a hooping station. Imagine doing this without a hooping station. So I can feel that I'm positioned there. Now, because I'm really only going to be wanting to put my design somewhere in the center, I'm not even too worried about marking the fabric with anything. I am also going to use a topping on this. Just lay that there. I'm now going to take my hoop. I'm going to feel for my hoop position. I can feel it right there, and now I'm just going to tuck that into position, and hopefully I've opened it up far enough. Yes, I have. And there we go. It's now hooped. I will, of course, at this point ensure that I count my magnets. So there's 2, 4, 6. The other 2 are up here. So I've just got to be careful as I take this out. I'm making sure that I don't let my hoop pop out, because I will want to just check my screw is tight. There's another magnet right there, and the other one was up in this corner. And there it is. So I have all my 8 magnets there, which is great. I'm now going to make sure my hoop is my inner ring is pushed in as far as I can. And I'm also going to just make sure that my hoop screw is relatively tight. Now, I've got a couple of turns to make that perfect, and it is. And let's have a look at how that has been hooped behind the scenes there. Look at that. We've got the stabilizer all caught perfectly. It was so easy with the hooping station. I have done this without using a hooping station. It can take me 3 or 4 attempts to get it hooped correctly. And of course, that then just goes onto the machine. And the same rules as we had with the little jumpsuit. You've just got to position all his extremities out the way. You certainly don't want to sew his arm or legs into the garment, into the embroider buddy, but it's a really simple process. And you'll love doing embroider buddies if you've got the right way of hooping, because that is the biggest challenge. Anyway, so that's just a few ways of using the hooping stations. There are countless things you'll be able to hoop on this. Both of them will become probably your most used hooping accessories if you give them a go. And you know, they're really well made, they're well put together. The non-slip silicone we use, it took us an eternity to actually find this as the best product to use, and it's great. It's easy to clean, just a warm soapy cloth will keep these nice and clean. The versatility of being able to reverse them to the smaller sizes, and in fact, you know, this size is great for the back of caps or anything, you know, tricky and small sleeves, for instance. It's so easy to slip them over here and get anything hooped into your smaller hoops there. So the versatility is exceptional. The ergonomics are great too. We mentioned that at the start, but you would have seen it's much easier working, and in fact, if I move that around a bit, it's much easier working at this angle than it is flat on the table surface. So ergonomically, they're fantastic. Great Aussie design and really well made, and just such a versatile product. Every embroidery room should have the Echidna Hooping Station set. Hope that's been helpful. If you have any questions, give us a call. We do have, as I said earlier, other videos showing you how to assemble these. It's really simple, but we're always happy to answer any questions, and that's essentially what we're here to do, is help when we need to. So that's it from me. Cheers.